Yo, what's up, everybody? D4s here, server 428, Battle of the Big. Been a little bit since the last video. Apologize about that. Kind of spent the last little bit, grinding on my own account with All Stars and had a lot of fun. It was great. Kind of get into a video about All Stars and my feelings on the game probably in a little bit, but wanted to finish up our second generals video here. We're going to deal with kind of attack and defense generals today. Really, what does it take to make a general as powerful as possible? And then really, how to maximize your combos and what you should be doing. So we'll start with, we'll go right into generals. All right. No, I would assume everyone knows how to raise a general, to get as high a power as possible. And then obviously adding stars, you want to get to 5 gold stars because it's going to maximize their stats. Pretty easy to do. You just hit, enhance there, and you'll be able to do that. Once they get to 5 yellow stars, you can begin ascending them. You can add red stars to them. It's very expensive. I would choose wisely in regards to which ones you're trying to do. What do you need to do that? You're going to need fragments. So if you see on the bottom left there, you're going to need fragments of the general, and you're going to need Ares blood. See the bottom right there, to ascend them. Each ascending level has 5 slots, and the cost is, like I said, very expensive. So in total, you're going to need 15 copies in addition to the original copy of the general, and you're going to need 4,580 Ares blood to raise this general to 5 stars. So the first star requires 30 frags and 620 blood. The second star requires 60 frags and 750 blood. Third star requires 90 frags and 890 blood. Fourth star requires 120 frags and 1070 blood. And then the fifth and final requires 150 frags and 1250 blood. So it's difficult to do, but as you'll notice, when you start to get third, fourth, fifth star, we talked about this in the duty generals, you're significantly enhancing their buffs. So ascensions really only play on the main general. They don't come into play on the assistant. There's no need to ascend your assistants, but when it comes to mains, it is very important. The second thing you're going to want to do is cultivate. So, what did I say? Oh, there we go. All right, so there's 4 stats: leadership, attack, defense, and politics. Depending on the general, depending on what the general does, you don't need to necessarily raise all those stats or max all those stats. We'll kind of go through them here real quick. If you look down below, you'll see it shows you what is getting improved under each of those stats. So for leadership, it's sub-city training speed, troop HP, and march speed. For attack, it's attack. For defense, it's defense. And then in politics, it's sub-city construction speed, gold production speed, resource gathering speed, and troop depth to wounded. So, I think politics is really only important for like your sub-generals and Jindiok. But again, when you're cultivating, you can turn around and pick whichever one you want to ascend there, or raise there, and then you try and get those stats as high as possible. There is a method to trying to get your stats over 500. It's difficult and costly, but you can obviously do that. So I think, if I were to look at another general here like Scipio, I was able to get some good cultivations on him, obviously. So it can be done. You just got to kind of manage the way that you cultivate. All right, so now we're going to go to specialties. So you'll see on the far right here, specialties. And basically, these require runestones and gems to raise. The last specialty is the most rare, so the immortal runestone is the most difficult to get. My recommendation, if you get any lucky stones through battle, is save those for this fourth specialty, so you can get those done easier and finish these guys off as quick as possible. Specialties do come into play on assistance and are very, very important. So A lot of people want to make sure they have the right general combos, and that the assistant's general stat plays. But if you're in a situation where you have a fully spec'd general on the bench, they actually might be more beneficial even if they don't pair with the main. And that's something you can check, just by attacking an empty keep, and testing your stats there. So let's see. Next, we'll go to skill books. I'm a little disappointed in regards to skill books. I kind of liked it before, because it really required some thought in regards to how you wanted to put your skill books on. Now, with the skill books playing for the main and the assistant general, you really can, for every troop type, can put, the right, books on. So, for ground, you can have ground speed and ground attack and ground HP and ground defense, and then march size and march speed. So you're really getting all the important ones, right, in your 6 books. There's a little bit of a, let's see if we can do it with Ludwig here. All right, because I haven't done anything. So when you're putting skills books on, it's very difficult. But basically, my recommendation would be to go down, place level 1 books, until you get the 3 that you want that stick. When you do that, just go up to the level 4 corresponding books, place those, they'll automatically replace them, and then you can break down all these 3s and 2s, to build new level 4 books. So if you're struggling to get books, break down all the 2s and 3s, level 1s and 4s that you don't want or don't necessarily need, and that'll allow you to conserve, right? So you're going to place as many of these level 1s as it takes to make them stick, and then you're going to replace them with level 4s. That's the most efficient way that I've found to do it. Let's see. All right, so there's a couple tricks when it comes to, ascending and the specialties when it comes to runes. If you have a general, like, I'm not going to do it, but let's just pull up Scipio here, and we hit this little red button up here where we're going to dismiss them. You'll see that, because I have Scipio ascended and because I have specialties done on him, I'm going to get back a ton of those runestone chests. I'm going to get back a ton of the Blood of Ares. So it's not 100%. I think it's probably likely around 80%. But you can kind of utilize that if you have, generals that you've ascended that you don't necessarily want and you're lacking Ares blood, you can sell them off and recoup some of that. That's really good. And then when it comes to runestones, well, for a lot of people, like, we'll go back into Ludwig just because I haven't done anything with them, and we go into specialties. You can see here I've got 102,000 of the first spec, right? And I've got most of the generals that I want to get done. So, if I took a general that I didn't want, and listen, it's going to cost you a lot of gems. So if you have the extra gems, but if I've fully spec'd out, the first or the second specialty, because I have all those extra ones, and then I sold the general, I'm going to get back those chests like we saw with Scipio, and I'm going to get those 4th immortal, runestones that I can take and then invest into someone that may need a 3rd or a 4th spec. So if you're struggling to get materials and you have an extra general lying around that you don't necessarily want, that's a good little trick to to get more of those immortal runestones. All right, so in order to check combos, I think the best way to do it is right here on your wall, like with your defense generals. So let's just resign and we can test. So I'm gonna pick Elise, and what you'll notice here, if I put, she usually pairs with Alessandra for me. So I'm going to put Alessandra in there. And then what you see here is that all of those, Alessandra's legendary and all her skill books are colored out. Nothing's grayed out. So that'll tell you that this general pairs with the other general, and then I've set skill books up accordingly so that it maximizes stats. If we resign and we try another one, you'll notice, where is it? So let's pick Solt. And what you'll see here is that Solt's legendary is grayed out. so they don't pair. So if I click on that, you'll see that the reason that doesn't happen is because Elise has an attack book on it, right? And the legendary won't play because the attack book's on there. So it's really important because Salt does pair with Elise, but it's really important to also make sure that whoever you have assisting, that the books are in accordance, that they're not blacking out any of their stats, so that you can maximize those things. If we, who is the one that I was thinking of? Yeah, all right, we won't deal with that now. All right, so now we're going to troop types. So when it comes to range generals, I'm going to switch that back because we have BUG tomorrow, and if I forget, I'll be pissed. Here he is. Get in there, George. All right. So when we go to really the troop types here, so I'm just going to kind of set on a monster here, so that you guys can see. All right. So this is what I use for my range troops. Simeon with Electra. If we look at it, all of these are in play. I think the attack book needs to be on Electra, can't be on Simeon. Again, I think there's some really good information out there. There's a Discord group online. You can find kind of templates on who works together and which generals are maximized, like what are the best generals now. Before we get into this, I mean, my recommendation, Evony continues to launch new generals that are fractionally better than the general before. So you take all this time and effort to invest in these generals and make these good combos, and it requires all of the, gems and runestones and blood of areas and fragments to get them. And then they launch these new people, and they want you to change so that you can continue to spend money. And the reality is if you look at where your buffs come from, they come from research, gear, refines, Civ Treasure, Art Hall. Like they're coming from, dragons. They're coming from all these different areas, right? So, I just would use caution. Don't chase. I'm at the point now where it's like, listen, I've got good general pairings. I'm very happy with them. I don't need to, keep chasing. If something comes along, I'll bring them up on the back burner. Maybe I'll put them into play. But I'm done kind of, chasing these new generals that they keep releasing, and to a certain extent the gear as well, right? They just keep releasing this stuff, and it's like you don't need to chase. You can get great buffs if you invest in the right pairs. I think the best range pairing right now might be Conrad with Edward III. Again, might be difficult to get frags for those generals. Myreco, Electra, and Minamoto are phenomenal as either a main or an assistant. They work very, very well. I happen to have Layden, so Celtic was an extra dragon, and I put it on Electra. And what you'll see here is because of that, I'm going to get that increased range troops attacked by 20% when General brings another dragon. So I'm enhancing her stats. I don't know if any of her specs require a dragon, but that would help as well. I'm not going to get any of Celtic's stats, but I am going to get that enhancement for Electra. Like I said, Electra and Minamoto work very well as either a main or assistant, and they're easy to get frags because they're in Tavern. If you're leading rallies and you want a larger rally size, Wallenstein and Tamiris as either a main or an assistant help with rally capacity, so they're also good options. If we go into ground, we'll go into ground. I use Elise and Alessandra. Alessandra they did like a general pack a little while ago. She's an amazing assistant. I think she's an amazing assistant because of the march size buffs that she has. You'll see here 8%, and then in her specs, it's somewhere in there, I think. Maybe not. But anyways, the only thing when you use Alessandra, the march size book needs to be on her. If it was on Elise, it wouldn't work. It would black out. So I think that is one of the best combinations. Um, Salt pairs, depending on the book placement, with Elise and Scipio. Scipio is also a very good option. Trajan is really good as well, and he's easily available. He works well as an assistant. I think there's an HP book thing that needs to happen with him, so he works. The Ludwig, who we saw earlier, I think he's the meta now. I think he's the best. Ludwig and Alessandra, I believe, are the best combination right now. But again, we're cutting hairs here. So if you have, I think Elise is great because in a lot of these events that they've been doing, they've given the opportunity to get fragments for Elise. So if you notice, I think, like 12 frags away from having her at 5 stars. So I'm really excited. We're going to go to Cav. When I first started investing in Cav, I thought Hannibal was the best. It was like Hannibal, Roland, Martinus was great also. Since they released assisting generals and pairings and whatnot, I really do think Martinus is probably the best. He pairs with most everyone as a main or an assistant. So if you have Martinus, he's easy to get frags of, and he works very well. For my Hannibal, Maximilian was really the only one that worked. I am in the process of switching. I'm almost done with my Cav project. I'm going to switch to Zhao with Custer, mainly for march size and the buff enhancements. So it was pretty significant for me. I'm going to go in that direction. I think Zhao Mordred works really well as well. And if you're running rallies, Lysander is a good option because he raises rally cap. So you can go there. If we go into Siege, I'm also in the middle of kind of a change here. I had Serena, who I thought was the best. They nerfed the attack book, so you can't put attack on Serena, which was ridiculous. And then it was kind of Patronus. Patronus works well as an assistant with Serena. Serena actually works as an assistant with Patronus. I think my goal was to get to Patronus with Ramses because that was kind of the best combo. They just released this guy Zuka. Zuka pairs with Serena, so Zuka Serena or Serena Zuka might be a better combo there. But in any regard, those are kind of who I think the best generals are. If you're looking for, tavern generals, Grant and Napoleon are pretty good siege generals. Depending on what server you are and how big you are, you may not have really gotten to the point where siege is big. It's huge for us. So I will actually create 2 combos, 2 pairings, and I'll try and create one for like small siege with flats and one for big siege with percents. And then if you look at, Serena here, if you look at the description, when general is leading the army. So Serena's buffs are going to apply when reinforcing, which, again, that's kind of why that combo will be used for reinforcing. If you look at Patronus here, you'll see that his is when leading the army to attack. So he's going to really only get those buffs when in rally or marching against a castle. So that's my take on that. And then defense, really, when you're doing defense, it's like, what's your build? If I could, I'd have, Leo as a main with like Septimius Severus as an assistant, and I'd have my siege stats off the charts. And then when I got sieged, I'd use them. And then when I was getting ranged, I'd switch to like Boudica and Lee Neomosa, right, to get my cab stats off the charts. And then, if I was going to, I wanted to defend with ground, I'd probably do Leonidas with Trajan. And like, so when it comes to, setting up your defense generals, Dewey, Marshall, they're good because they have like kind of the key stat buffs, which are siege, attack, and then like mounted HP. I don't think there's a right or wrong option here. I think it comes down to like, what's your setup, right? What's your setup, and how do you want to build it out? What do you want to buff? Can you make 2 or 3 different pairings and then switch them on the fly? Sure. Will it make you better? 100%. But really, when it comes down to it, that's what I would do. And then lastly, like the last little thing that I wanted to touch on is, like, if you are making purchases, and pardon me, it might take me a little bit. I don't remember where it is. Oh, here it is. If you're making purchases, right, you see this historic general summoning here. What they've done in like the last couple weeks or months is they've done this like historic general summoning. So when you get those generals from the packs that you buy, like you can see up top here, like the epic historic general, they're basically force feeding you the new general. So if you have those and you don't want, this dude because you don't need him and he doesn't pair well, or he's not optimal, then I would wait. Don't open them. Hoard them. Save them. And then when someone does come out that you want, I'd use them all then, because you can see here, it's guaranteed pretty much every 5 times that you're opening it, and the chance of getting them is 600% greater. So you're going to do a lot of damage. I'll just take a look at, for me, like, I coined a little bit for All Stars. So Zuko was one that I kind of liked and did that with. Um, it's so hard to find these people. All right. And so because of that, I was able to get, I don't have them starred yet. Sorry. But anyways, if we look at items, where is he? Anyways, I was able to get a lot of copies of him wherever he is. So I'm gonna have a better chance to ascend him when I'm ready to do that. That was my main goal. Is you may want to open those generals up and get people that you like, but if you're gonna get someone you don't like every 5 times you open it, you're better off waiting. Open those scrolls when the general you do like is there, and you'll be able to maximize it and get as many copies of that person as possible. All right, so that was generals part 2. My next video will be on monsters, how to set up your monster generals, really growth generals, right? And then we'll do a little break off there in regards to gathering generals and how to maximize and grow organically through rallies and gathering. And we'll kind of go over all that. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Always a pleasure. Have a great day. Bye.